Welcome back to My Life, His Story. Last week we started with part one of Wesley's story. Stay tuned because here we come with part two. So last week we left off. You were in that bottom. We talked about everything that had gone wrong, everything from childhood that led up to adolescence, that led up to bad choices, and just not being able to figure out, that led you to that room by yourself, that led you to that moment where death was an upgrade. Now, the good news is we're doing this interview, right?
That's right.
So because we're doing this interview, we know that the story wasn't over, right? And so you had started to talk about waking up the next day and that you cried out to God and were like, if you're here, help me. And so let me ask, let's just kind of kick off there. Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, man. I think a lot of people expect sometimes for that moment where you're willing to step out in faith and you take that leap, and you cry out to God, that just everything changes and everything's wiped clean, and suddenly all those old emotions are replaced with good ones. And man, I don't know about you, but that was not the case for me.
You hear all these stories about like somebody in a tough situation, they cry out to God and they're like, help me. And then a random stranger knocks on their door and presents them with the Bible, or, somebody calls them and does that. And yeah, that happens and that's awesome. But just because it happens doesn't mean that's the normalcy, or doesn't mean that's how it's going to happen. Right.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think too, we can go down a road in life for so long. Again, like I was describing, that feeling of just a light at the end of the tunnel, a light of hope and a vision for the future, what's possible, just being completely diminished. That is the one thing that did change, right? Was like in that moment, there was just enough. Like I just had like a glimmer of hope. And the truth is that that's enough. That's right. I think when we want to have the answers, we want to have a blueprint, we want to know how to take the next steps and where that's going to go and when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that in faith, truly. Right. If we step out in faith, it actually requires that we don't have the answers, but we have to cling to hope in that moment, And that was that first step that I took, was just waking up, just recognizing, man, this is not where I need to be. And for everybody that I care about, everybody that I love, the sense of purpose and meaning and what my life could be as a dad, it's not this. It's not this. Right. And there could be something better. And God, if I'm going to be able to get there, it's going to be with you, and that was day one. But dude, I'm a slow learner.
Yeah.
I messed up a lot still for a long time.
I always tell people, man, like I hear these stories where people are like, and then God, and like, I feel like God created me, so he knows me. So he doesn't like give me little hints. He hits me with trucks, and 90% of the time I still miss it. You know what I mean? Right. And I think we have that in common, Wesley.
Totally. No, totally. Yeah. I'm exactly that way, man. I thought, I did start taking one day at a time and one step at a time. But man, the ability to stay on the path, that God has you on. And I'm sharing this with everybody that's listening too, because God has a calling on your life. And he has a plan for you, and he has a path for you to go on. If you're making mistakes and you're failing along the way, it does not mean it's because you're not good enough. It means that you're human.
That's right.
Right? It means that you actually need him. And every time something happens and you mess up and you fail and you fall off the path, it's okay. It's okay. That's right. You're not a failure. You're not worthless. You have meaning. You have value. You just need to be able to get back up and get back on the path. And the quicker that you do that, the better off everybody's going to be, I fell
So
off the
good.
path a lot, man, on the way, but
Yeah.
but God was there,
Well,
he was there.
speaking of the path, like I know I'm curious. So if I'm curious, I'm sure everybody that's listening is too.
Yeah.
You went from eighth grade dropout to Doctor Wesley Northey.
That's right,
Right?
man.
How? Like that's my
Yeah.
only question. How?
That's right. Yeah, it's interesting because during a lot of the storm that I had been in, one of the things that I wanted to be able to do, and I was trying to do as a dad, was be able to have some sort of career without even, I had my GED, or I didn't at the time, but somebody had told me about massage school. And I thought, man, that actually sounds cool. Like I might be able to do that. I looked into it. The summer program was 4 months. It was intensive. It was like 5 days a week. And I was like, I could go to school for 4 months. So anyway, I went to that school, and dude, this was my first opportunity to like be in a position to help people at all,
Yeah.
And I developed and learned a skill that allowed me to help people in a way where they'd come in feeling bad, they'd spend an hour with me, and they'd leave feeling better. And I just thought, this is the coolest thing ever, right? So when I started getting my life together, getting my life on track, started sobering up, I thought I had been familiar with physical therapists previously. And I just thought, man, what they're doing is so cool. It's amazing, helping people walk again and heal and recover. I
Sure.
was like, there's no way I could ever go to school that long. It was just not possible. But
Yeah.
there was a physical therapy assistant program at a community college for 2 years. And I enrolled in some classes. And bro, I'm telling you, as soon as I started going back to school and getting into classes, it was like God put it on my heart that wasn't what he intended, that he wanted me to go all the way and to
Wow.
earn a doctorate. And looking at that as somebody with my background, again, just no high school experience at all, I just thought that's impossible. That's impossible. And he just laid it out very clearly that it was to be one day at a time, one semester at a time, 1 year at a time, and that's it. And I just thought, this is crazy, but let's start going, and I started on that path. Around that time, I met my wife, and somehow she believed in me. She saw through just the train wreck that I was. And it was the first time that I had somebody believe in me and at the same time not put up with me.
Yeah. Oh, I get that.
Yeah, I didn't know this, but I needed somebody that cared about me, that knew that good things could be in store for my life. But at the same time, when I tried to throw a pity party for myself and fall back into the victim mentality, that they just weren't going to put up with it. And
That's right.
that's who she was, man. And who she still is, actually. She won't let me throw any pity parties. But no, I
Same.
started going back to school. And over that course of going back, I mean, it took 8 years. I'd gone through, I did the 2 years at the community college. I transferred over to our University of Arkansas, finished with my bachelor in exercise science, kinesiology, restored my relationship with my children, got married, had more kiddos. I ended up graduating. I got accepted into a really tough program, a doctorate program. We got through all this, and I was asked by my class to speak for our commencement ceremony. And I'll never forget being up there, man. It was one of the most impactful moments of my life, actually, was being on that stage and having over 50 classmates that I had grown with, having my family, my children in the audience, and being able to have an example for them for what was possible. And you know what? Being up there, I was honored, but I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like there's imposter syndrome is this term that's used a lot. That was an imposter syndrome moment. I was up there and I'm like, man, if everybody knew who I really was, they'd be like, get this guy out of here. Like he doesn't belong here. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And this was the really big moment, man, was shortly after that. I was working in a hospital, graduated, and I'm sitting at home on my couch. I'll never forget. Everybody had gone to sleep. I'm in my dream home with my wife, beautiful family, all those things that I had once thought would never be possible. You know, being a good man, being a good husband, good father, all these things, man, I was so blessed. So blessed. I couldn't believe it. It took over a decade. But I was sitting there, bro, and I still felt like no matter what I did, it was never going to be good enough. And I literally, I sat there and I said, what do I do now, God? I thought I was doing everything right. And a few days later, you'll love this. I was listening to this random track in my headphones. I was exercising, and it was a playlist. And on one of the songs, they had overdubbed this voice recording. It said, "You need a new mind," in this deep voice. And I looked down, and it's this guy, Bishop T.D. Jakes, who I'd never heard of before. And he's going on about having a new mindset, you know? And I just thought, you know what? Something clicked, man. And I was like, before I can change how I feel about myself in my heart, I have to change what I believe about myself in my mind. And through physical therapy school, we learned a lot about neuroscience, how and neuroplasticity, and how the brain changes. And I thought, you know, we can help people walk again who have had traumatic brain injuries and stroke. And I thought, if that's possible, I can surely change the way that I think about myself, right? So I became obsessed with motivational speakers and coaches and mentors, and just got immersed in programs and books, and started to practice having a purpose mindset and being purposeful and believing in myself and all these great things. And it was that time, man, we started going to some different churches, and we were sitting in service, and the pastor had said what I'd heard 1,000 times before, but it was something about the way that he said it. And he told the congregation that he's like, you know, you might feel really great about the afterlife, you know, but maybe you haven't made Jesus actually the very center of everything in your life. And I thought, man, that is so true. I was like, I've spent over a decade, and my relationship with God has just remained a box to check, something else to do or to try to get right or to achieve or succeed or get together. I'm like, he's been so good to me. He's provided, like, this second chance that I've had at life. Like, I can't even believe how good he's been to me. But in that moment, man, I was like, he's not the center of everything.
Wow.
You know, he was just on the periphery. And so I made that commitment. I said, all right, Lord, come into my heart. Like, you're everything to me now. And bro, like, that's when life changed, man. Like, I thought life had changed before with all the good stuff on the outside, but he changed my heart, man. He came inside it to live and reside in my heart, man. The Holy Spirit did. And it was like a flame lit in my heart. That was 2/2/2020. And the next month, the pandemic hit, bro.
Wow. Wow. And, you know, your story from there is even, I mean, it's really, we could literally do a whole nother episode just on 2020 till now.
Yeah.
But the kind of the Cliff Note version, you kind of close your practice where you were practicing as a physical therapist in a wellness center, and you start pursuing helping people through the spirit instead of through the body. And and that kind of led to you and I getting connected, and man, God just continued to show up and show off.
That's it. No, I started sharing my testimony, what I had been through. I knew people at home, because of the pandemic, were struggling more than ever with addiction, depression, anxiety, and unfortunately suicide as well. And I learned the power in a testimony and reaching out to people that are going through the things that I had experienced. And I was doing that more and more, not really sure where God was taking me, man, but you're absolutely right. I was able to find REBOOT Recovery and get connected and find out there was a place for me in the team. And bro, it's like you said, it's been nothing but just God opening doors and moving since then, man. So I'm so thankful I'm so thankful. And again, I just want to encourage everybody out there, if you're in one of those seasons of life right now where you just might be losing hope, you might think that I've been through too many different things or too many different challenges, or I can't get it together, or that can't be me. I promise you, like I'm living proof that anything's possible. I mean, God is so good, and he's there for you, and he has a greater purpose for you. If you're willing to chase after him and pursue him, he'll meet you where you're at and he'll provide.
Man, I couldn't think of any greater closing words from such an amazing man. And, Wesley, thank you so much for being willing to jump on My Life, His Story. Thank you for being willing to share your story. Knowing, just like you said, there's power in testimony. And we believe strongly that the way we connect with people is through the power of our stories and how our life has become his story.
That's right.